I like to sit in my home office in the evenings. The sunlight filters through the curtains and gives everything a cozy glow. It's a nice feeling. Or at least it used to be. Now it's just anxiety-inducing. My coffee is cold and my desk is cluttered with empty cups. I've been working on my computer all day, trying to finish up a project for work. But now I'm distracted by something else. A phone. I found it next to some books on the shelf behind my desk. It's not mine, and it's not Claire's. I was sure of it because she had the same model as me, but a different color. "Honey, I'm going to get us some food," I hear Claire call from the bottom of the stairs, and it shocks me so much that I almost drop the phone. "Okay," I yell back, trying to sound as normal as possible, despite my heart now pounding like a jackhammer. I hear the door open and close, the sound of footsteps on the path outside, the car starting. Then I turn back to the phone. 4 numbers was all it would take. Claire used the same password for everything, our anniversary date. I told her it wasn't safe, but now I was glad of it. I put in 0824 and the phone unlocked with a happy little chime. There were a lot of messages. I opened them up and began to look through them. The first conversation was with Todd. Just Todd, no last name. It had to be our neighbor, Todd, the guy who invited me to his kid's birthday party next month. "Miss you. Jay is working late tonight. Come by. Janine's at her sister's." The timestamps from the past few weeks make it clear that all of this was done deliberately. Messages deleted from her phone, then retyped on this one to make it look like it was hers. My eyes are watering, and I realize my fists are clenched. The second conversation is even worse. It's from a man named Kyle, who I know from Claire's office. "That dress, you are killing it. Conference room B is free at lunch hour." The thread was filled with pictures. I closed it before I could see something I would regret, but it was too late. I had already seen too much. I stood up, feeling nauseous. What was I going to do? I walked over to the window and looked out. Everything looked so normal. Mrs. Peterson was walking her dog, some kids were riding their bikes, and Todd was watering his lawn in a pair of shorts. Did he know about this? I wondered. Was he part of it? Was that why he was so friendly? I let out a dry laugh. Of course he knew about it. They all knew about it. I returned to my desk and looked at the pictures of my family. Pictures of me and Claire in Paris, me and Claire at her sister's wedding, me and Claire, me and Claire, me and Claire and our kids. Why hadn't I seen it before? It was so obvious. I threw the coffee mug against the wall. It shattered into hundreds of pieces, and black coffee splashed down the white wall. "Control," I muttered to myself, sucking in a breath. "Think. I'm a programmer. I debug, I analyze, I solve problems. And this is just a problem to be solved. Not with hasty decisions, though. Not with impulsive reactions. This requires something more sophisticated." I record the evidence on the phone. Screenshots, timestamps, everything. I transfer them to my personal cloud storage, ensuring that I have backups. I have proof now. I have power. I have leverage. The rage I felt before is still there, but I channel it into something productive. I clean up the spilled coffee and the broken cup, making sure that there's no trace of my outburst. I put the phone back where I found it, making it look like I never touched it. Claire won't notice a thing. Not yet, at least. I return to my computer and stare at the code on the screen. I try to focus, but my mind is racing with ideas. Ideas of how to confront Claire, how to expose her, how to make her pay for what she's done. But I need to be smart about it. I need to be strategic. I need to plan my next move carefully. I hear the door open downstairs. "I'm home!" Claire shouts. "I brought Chinese food, your favorite." I take a deep breath and compose myself. "Coming," I reply, trying to sound cheerful. I look at my reflection in the monitor. I smile at myself, but it's a cold smile. A fake smile. A smile that hides my true intentions. Claire won't know what hit her. She won't know how much I've changed in the past few hours. She won't know that I'm not the same naive, trusting husband she married. I'm someone else now. Someone who won't let her get away with cheating on me. Someone who will make her regret every lie she ever told me. I head downstairs, determined to play my part until the time is right to strike. "Is something wrong?" she asks. "You look a little sick." "Nope, everything's great," I say. And it's true, because now I have purpose. I have clarity. I have a plan. just a little tired, ready to eat. She really has no idea how much longer it's going to be. After dinner, when Claire gets into the shower, I wait a few minutes until I hear her humming to herself. She doesn't realize it, but she's giving me all the time in the world to figure out what she's been hiding from me. I go out to the garage and grab the necessary equipment. The food weighs heavy in my stomach. After supper, I clean up and watch Claire go upstairs to have her evening shower. We always have our evening showers at this time. It's part of our routine. As I wash the dishes, I listen to the water running from the pipes as she showers, and think about what I'm going to do. There are many memories in our home. My wife and I have been together for nearly 5 years now. I've always been able to pick up on patterns and things other people miss, and now I see them everywhere. The couch cushion is more worn where Todd sits when he comes over. The laptop is always closed and locked when she gets up from the couch. My wife's calendar has several late nights penciled in for work meetings that I would never have noticed before. When the sound of the shower is still running, I go out to the garage and grab my tools. In an old toolbox, which Claire has never opened, since it actually contains tools, I have hidden a few secret items. I pull them out now, taking them to different rooms of the house and installing them where I will have a good view. I bought them with cash, so she would never see the purchase. They were expensive, but they work well and are wireless, with excellent night vision. "Just grabbing a beer from the garage, babe," I yell back to her, keeping up the charade. "Okay, can you pick up my dry cleaning tomorrow?" she shouts over the sound of the shower. "Yep," I say, my fake smile plastered on my face as I set up the first camera. Living room corner, facing the couch. The second goes by the front door, hidden behind a piece of wall art. The shower stops. I pick up the pace, installing spyware on our desktop computer, then hastily moving on to her laptop. Her password is still our wedding date. Some people never change. I look through her files and find several hidden folders with strange names like Tax Returns 2019, Book Club Agendas, and Mom's Recipes. I copy them all to a USB drive, then open them to see what's inside. Most of it is boring financial data, but there's also a lot of evidence of her infidelities, such as hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and gifts. The bedroom door opens. I quickly close everything and put the computer back to sleep. "What's this about the garage?" Claire asks, stepping out in her robe and towel. "Just some tools I need to put away," I say, nodding toward the garage. "Was thinking I'd try to fix that squeaky gate once and for all." She laughed. "My handyman husband. Don't stay up too late coding." "Never do." I lie. After she leaves, I go back to work. I install spyware on all the devices, keyloggers to read her passwords and see what she's been typing, a tracker on her phone so I can see where she's going. I install cameras and microphones everywhere in the house, hidden in places she won't see them. I want to know everything. That night, she sends me a text saying she'll be home late. "Don't wait up," she says. "Got a big project at work. Need to stay late." I watch her phone's GPS location as it goes to a hotel a couple towns over, and when I look up Todd's phone's location, I see he's there too. I make a note of it, put it in my file. It goes on like this for a few more days. I catch her on camera kissing him in the doorway of our house when she thinks I'm at work. The monitoring software picks up emails back and forth between the two of them, making plans to meet up, joking about the husband who doesn't suspect a thing. I look through her bank account and see she's opened up a separate one and has been transferring money from our joint savings into it. And it's not just Todd. She's been seeing other guys as well. I catch her meeting up with someone named Kyle on camera. I find emails and text messages to other men as well. It's like the floodgates have opened, and I can see everything. After a week of this, I'm sitting in my office reviewing footage when I see Claire pulling into the driveway. I quickly turn off the video feed and start working on my development project, pretending like I haven't been monitoring her every move. "Hey, you're still awake?" she asks. "Yeah, just trying to fix this bug." I'm still staring at the screen. "How was your day?" "Draining. I hate these deadlines." I nodded, seeing her reflection in the screen as she put her new purse on the floor. "You should get some rest. You too. Go to sleep at a reasonable hour." When she's left, I add the data from tonight to the rest of my evidence. Location logs, timestamps, and video footage from the front entrance of the hotel. It all adds up, and it all indicates that she has been lying about where she's been and what she's been doing. The next morning goes just like the last. I make us breakfast and coffee and let her prepare for work. I manage to catch her looking at her secret phone when she thinks I'm not watching. "I made breakfast if you want some," I announce, expecting her to say no. "Ah, I'm good, thanks. Early meeting." I listened as the door closed. Then I checked the traffic cam feed to see if she went to her office or to Todd's house. At the same time, I received a text from Janine. It read, "Can we talk?" "Of course," I say. "Coffee tomorrow?" A moment later, a reply appeared. "Great, there's something you should know." I copied it and saved it in my folder. This was getting more and more interesting by the minute. I was learning so much about my wife in such a short span of time. And yet I still had so much more to figure out. Another alert went off. I opened the message expecting more of the same, but instead found something new, and worse. It was an email conversation between Claire and a real estate agent. I read the messages in the thread. The agent was saying, "The house is still available. Would you like to make an offer?" And my wife had replied to the email saying, "The house is perfect. I'll have the down payment ready next week." My blood boiled in my veins. Still, I couldn't act. I had to pretend everything was normal. I had to keep my cool. After all, she wasn't just planning a divorce. She was planning on leaving me for another man. And that was something I couldn't let her get away with. I had to get more evidence. Solid evidence. Irrefutable proof that she was cheating on me. That would come tomorrow, hopefully, with the help of Janine. After that, Claire would be in for a big surprise. I watched my reflection on the security footage and practiced my calm, composed expression. I wanted to be sure I looked normal and not upset, just in case Claire was watching me. A moment later, my phone buzzed with a text message from her. "Lunch meeting ran long. Don't wait for dinner." "No worries," I message him. "Whenever you're ready." I saved the message, thinking I might need it for later. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, but I knew I had to hold on to every single one of these lies. Not just from Janine, but from my wife as well. I needed to have all my ducks in a row, all my facts straight. The truth would come out one way or another, but I needed to have it all documented. I needed to have my facts straight. I wasn't sure if I would talk to Janine the next day, but I decided to give it a shot. Maybe she would give me more information. I didn't want to miss the opportunity if I could catch her alone again. As for today, I would need to bide my time. There was still much to learn. I could tell I was still only scratching the surface. Could I ever find the bottom of this rabbit hole? I would have to wait and see. That night, I barely slept. All I could think about were the things Janine had told me about Todd, and how it all fit perfectly into place. I tossed and turned, and tried to pretend I was asleep for a few hours before Claire woke up. I didn't want to tip her off that I was on to her just yet. The next morning, as I drank my coffee, I thought back to the message I'd sent Janine. It had only been the day before, but it felt like a week. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose. Janine's revelations about Todd's erratic behavior provided me with the perfect scapegoat for my plan, and I knew exactly how to get away with it. There was a neighborhood barbecue happening that day. It was at the Petersons' house, a few blocks away. Normally, I would have found an excuse not to go, but today I was glad for the opportunity. Claire was leaving for work and reminded me to be there. "I'll meet you at the barbecue," she said on her way out the door. "Yeah," I answer, handing her the travel mug. "Kyle's team?" A small pause. "Yeah, quarterly review stuff." I had already seen the hotel reservation in her hidden email. It was a different hotel this time, but the same old story. "Have a nice day," I say, as she leaves in a rush. It doesn't feel like home anymore. It feels like a game of chess, where I have to plan every move, and it takes the entire morning to make sure I have all the pieces in place. I go through the audio and the video recordings. I make timetables and put everything together. In the afternoon, I stand in the backyard, drinking a beer, and watch the people arriving. Janine arrives about an hour after me. Todd is working late, she tells everyone, but I know that he isn't. "Jason!" Mrs. Peterson calls me over to the barbecue. "Come help George with the burgers, will you? He doesn't know what he's doing." I mingle with the crowd, pretending to be one of them. Just another concerned neighbor, another devoted husband. "That's too bad Todd has to work weekends now," I say to George, flipping burgers. Janine must be disappointed. George made a face. "I thought he was going to poker nights." "Really? I thought she was coming over tonight," I say, not bothering to correct him. It doesn't take long for the word to spread. People begin to talk. Janine comes over to the grill, her wine glass almost empty. She looks at me and says, "Hey Jason, have you heard from Claire?" "Still at the office," I say, keeping my voice level. "Quarterly review." "Quarterly." Janine stands a little straighter. "I thought they were last month?" I stop and pretend to think about it. Oh, I might have gotten it wrong. There are so many meetings lately, it's difficult to keep track of them all. I can see in her face that she's starting to connect the dots. Dots I've placed there for her to find. I continue to mingle during the afternoon, carefully planting seeds of doubt in people's minds. "Claire is often working late at night with the team," I tell Kyle's wife Emily, just to mention one example. "Kyle's been working late too," she replies, a strained smile on her face. "Yeah, big project," I say, noticing the worry lines on her forehead. Claire arrives late, apologizing profusely to everyone. She doesn't notice the changes I've made to the room. "Sorry I'm late, honey," she says, kissing me on the cheek. Her lipstick looks fresh. Her hair looks perfect. Too perfect if she'd been in meetings all day. "No problem at all," I answer, giving her a plate. "You haven't missed much." But she has. She's missed the whispers, the glances, the doubt that is slowly spreading. She's missed the cracks that have begun to form in her social circle. When it gets dark, the get-together ends. I see Emily talking to Kyle in private. Janine leaves early, saying she has a headache. The damage is done. When we get home, I start preparing a late dinner. Claire is in the shower upstairs. I chop the vegetables slowly and methodically, just like my plan, just like my revenge. I hear the water stop running. Claire is humming a song. She's probably checking her other phone, not knowing that I have already saved the messages from it. "What are you making?" she asks from upstairs. "Oh, just a stir-fry," I answer, dicing vegetables. "Nothing fancy, but it is special. It is another normal moment in a life that isn't normal at all anymore. Another scene in the play I've written where I know every word by heart, where I can sit back and enjoy the show." I added some vegetables to the frying pan and began stirring them around while thinking about what was coming next. The second act was just starting. The isolation. She would be alone soon, all alone, and then she would see her world of lies come down like a house of cards. And I would be there to watch it happen. The knife glimmered in the light as I set it down on the cutting board. She was humming a tune to herself again, her voice growing distant as she went upstairs. She had no idea her world was already beginning to fall apart. I finished making dinner and set the table for two. Dinner for two, like always. The sun had set by the time I finished washing the dishes. I couldn't sleep. Instead, I spent the night in my home office, going through some paperwork and making a few phone calls. When the sun rose, I left the house. Claire was still asleep in bed. It was probably the last time I saw her in the morning without putting on the mask. The drive downtown gave me plenty of time to get into character again. The day after the barbecue, I meet him at a coffee shop downtown. I don't want to bring him to my usual place to work, in case someone recognizes me and mentions it to Claire. "Would you like a refill, sir?" the barista asks, snapping me out of my research into divorce lawyers. "Sure." I slide the cup forward and notice my hand is perfectly still. Since my arrival, I've had 5 different lawyers come in to see me. I made several phone calls in advance and lined them up for consultations. The last one was about to come in any minute. She walked in the door right on time. "Mr. Reeves?" Her hand is cold and professional. "Thanks for agreeing to meet me," I say, shutting my laptop. "First meetings are always best in public. It's more comfortable for the client." She puts her briefcase on the table and orders an Americano. "Now, tell me why you brought me here." I handed over a USB drive. "I've collected proof of everything. I've had him followed for 5 months. He's been cheating on me with at least 2 women. He's been hiding money from me, and he's planning on buying a house behind my back." She looked at me, a little surprised. "Most people come to me because they suspect something. You've already done most of the work for me. I'm a programmer. Reading manuals is in my blood." She reviews the information on the tablet, nodding occasionally, and nobody around us has any idea that we're planning to destroy their business. "Impressive," she says at last. "What do you want in return? An easy payout? Publicity?" "I want it to be watertight, specific, undeniable." I shift a little closer. And I want her to be unable to use someone like you when she figures it out. Patricia almost smiled at that. I know you've never lost a case like this. I know you have relationships with most of the other top firms in the city, which would be conflicts of interest if she tried to hire them. Smart. I like that. She sips her coffee. My retainer is not cheap. I pushed another folder forward. Neither is my tech salary, or our shared accounts, which I still have full access to. When do you want to file? Not yet. I need to put a few more things in order. I look over at a young couple, 2 tables away, sharing muffins and laughs. But soon. My office, tomorrow, 2 p.m. Bring all of your shit. Paper, digital, anything else you find. She stands up and closes her briefcase. And Mr. Reeves, please don't tell anyone about this meeting. Not even your best friends. I don't have best friends anymore. Just witnesses. She smiles and leaves. The next day, her office looks like a surgical room. The windows in the conference room reveal the city Claire and I plan to grow old in. Okay, so tell me again what happened, Patricia says, laying some papers out on the table. First, I'd say I found the phone. Then I'd tell him about the security camera and the money, and the fact that Todd had been involved and Kyle as well. And these were from their spouses? She waves the statements from Janine and Emily. Yes, they were more than happy to oblige. It's sometimes nice to have a shared enemy. The real estate transactions are the most compelling, Patricia says, pointing to the house purchases. A clear declaration of intent to leave the marriage. That's what we need. She doesn't know I have these. I run my finger along the edge of one of the juicier bank statements. None of them do. Let's keep it that way. We'll submit everything at once. The divorce papers, the evidence, the emergency requests to freeze assets. By the time she learns of what's happening, it will be too late for her to mount a proper defense. The conversation went on for hours, unpacking the intricacies of each betrayal and how to use that information to best effect. One more thing, Patricia says as we're finishing up. You sure you want to do this? It's kind of scorched earth. No turning back. I look at the wedding photo of us. It was the one they used as evidence. She forfeited her return the second she planned her escape. Now it's about ensuring she can't steal anything else from me. Fair enough. Patricia starts closing the file. I'll have the initial papers ready for you by Friday. Keep working on your case, especially the real estate angle. And Jason? Yeah? You're not the first husband to pursue vengeance through the courts, but you're easily the most methodical. I stood up and straightened my jacket. I learned from the best. Claire taught me everything I know about betrayal. The elevator ride down felt like a descent into a new version of myself. Someone more ruthless, more cold, more calculating. The security guard in the lobby nodded at me as I passed. Just another day at the office of destroying lives, all within the bounds of the law. Outside, I checked my phone and saw a text from Claire. Working late again? Don't wait up. I saved the message to my evidence file, knowing it would come in handy when I finally confronted her about her lies. She thought she could keep me in the dark, but she was about to find out just how wrong she was. The city lights blurred as I walked the 3 blocks to where I'd parked my car. I'd left it there on purpose, away from the law office's security cameras. I got in, closed the door, and sat in silence for a few moments, contemplating the meeting I'd just had. Then I started the engine and drove home. I drove home after that, thinking about what Patricia Chen had told me. I had enough dirt on my wife and her boyfriend to destroy them both 10 times over. It was all in neat little folders on my laptop, a developer's method of revenge. When I got to the house, I pulled into the driveway and went inside. Claire wasn't home yet. She was working late. I took the stairs up to the bedroom, thinking about all the times we had run up and down those stairs together playing, and the time we had moved in, carrying furniture up with such high hopes for the future. It all felt tarnished now, like it had been dipped in poison. Touching it was enough to make you sick. Our bedroom, our sanctuary. What a joke. I set up my laptop on the desk. All right, let's do this, I say to myself, flipping open the laptop. I turn on my laptop. I should probably remove the picture from the nightstand, but I decide to leave it for now. Maybe because it's proof of what I'm fighting against. Maybe because it's proof of what I used to fight for. I open up the files Patricia and I discussed today. I sit down on the bed and look through some of the early divorce papers. It's filled with our initials, CR and JR. Not for long, though. I get a text from Claire. The meeting is taking longer than expected. I might have dinner with my colleagues. All good, I respond. Feel better. I saved the message to my folder of evidence. It was getting pretty full by now. Looking out the window, I saw Todd's house across the street. His light went on in his study, then flicked off again. He was home early. I wondered if Janine knew or if she was still under the impression he was out playing poker with the guys. I pulled up the prenup agreement Claire and I had signed 5 years ago. I wondered if she had forgotten about this too. Section 3.4, I said to no one in particular, in the event of adultery. After a few minutes, I heard a car door shut. I went to the window and saw Todd leaving his house, trying to be sneaky about it. He really wasn't very good at it. He turned on his headlights after he was out of the driveway, which seemed like a rookie mistake. I made a note of it. Part of me felt bad for all of this, but what could I do? He was clearly up to no good, and I was gathering evidence. I was doing the right thing. I went back to my desk and made a note of the time that Todd had left his house. I added it to the other notes I had about him, which were growing by the day. I had a binder now dedicated to all of the strange things Todd had been doing. My shadow loomed on the wall in front of me, cast by the desk lamp. It looked just like the shadow of a detective. Define dispersal of assets, I type. Due to previously noted betrayals, the hours go by, and before I know it, the room is dark. I don't turn on any more lights, though. The darkness feels appropriate for my mood, and for what I'm doing. Words like irreconcilable differences, punitive damages, and material breach of contract appear on the screen as my fingers type them on the keyboard. I get another text from Claire. Staying at Kyle's tonight, too tired to drive. I chuckle to myself as I read it. Okay, be safe, I reply. I add it to the file of evidence. My face stares back at me in the reflection on the screen. I look oddly calm, unbothered by all of this. I look dead inside. Standing up, I stretch out my back and feel it crack in several places. I look around the room, our room, the place where we sleep together, the bed where we fuck. This whole house suddenly feels like a crime scene. My phone rang in my pocket, and I saw Janine's number on the display. Hello? Jason? Todd just called. He's gonna sleep over at his brother's. I look out at the driveway and see Todd's car is still gone. That's interesting. His brother lives in Seattle. There was a long pause, then, I'm ready. Whatever you're going to do, I'm in. Stop by my office tomorrow. Bring your paperwork. I will? Thank you, Jason. I hung up the phone, satisfied with the new piece of the puzzle I'd put into place. After that, I went back to work. I had more than enough material to destroy Claire in a divorce. I just needed to put it all together. I spent the rest of the night on that task. I didn't sleep that night, and I didn't even lie down in the bed. I didn't want to. I knew that Claire would come home in the morning. She would kiss me on the cheek and pretend that everything was fine, that nothing had happened. But I would know. I would know everything, and I would continue to work on her downfall while she slept in our bed, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to hit her. I continued working on the laptop. I didn't stop until I had to go to work. I didn't stop until the day after, when I was ready to execute the last step of my plan. I glanced at the time on my laptop. 6:47 p.m. Claire had sent me a message saying she would be home soon. Everything was ready. I'd placed the manila envelope on the coffee table. The video footage was prepared to be played on our TV, and I'd laid out all the evidence of her infidelity. I dimmed the lights in the living room, creating a more somber atmosphere. The cameras I'd installed earlier were rolling, capturing every detail of this pivotal moment. At precisely 7:03 p.m., I heard the sound of keys in the door. I stood up, waiting near the fireplace. Jason, why are the lights off? Sit down, Claire, I hear myself say. She stopped in the doorway, not coming in yet. What's going on? Go ahead, take a seat. I counted her steps until she reached the carpet. 4. You're making me nervous, she says, sitting down on the edge of the couch. That's funny. You're more worried about getting caught than you are about what you did. I walk over to the coffee table. Read the letter. She took the phone and looked at it, puzzled. What is this? The truth, at last. The envelope contained hotel receipts, bank statements, and photographs taken by security cameras. I can explain, she begins. Can you explain Todd? Or maybe Kyle? Or how about the house you're going to buy with our savings? I ask, tapping one incriminating photo. She looked taken aback, like I'd slapped her. How did you... I'm a developer, Claire. It's my job to figure things out, to find patterns, and you left quite a pattern. I turned on the TV with the remote and a video began to play. It was a montage of Claire and Todd at my front door, Claire and Kyle at hotels. Stop, she says. Please. Like you stopped when I stayed late at work? Like you stopped when Janine came over with cookies? Like you stopped when Kyle came over for dinner? She looked down, shoulders slumping. This isn't how it was supposed to go. To what? To hurt me? To ruin our marriage? To embarrass me in front of all our friends? I ask, leaning forward, still speaking in a calm manner. Or to not get caught? I love you, she says. I snort. You loved having that lifestyle, Claire. But you also loved having a husband who believed your lies. I handed her a stack of papers. What? What is this? She asks, her voice shaky. You have a choice. Sign the papers, we split everything equally, and no one finds out. Or refuse, and your affairs, all your secrets, they all come out. You wouldn't do that. The Claire I married wouldn't have cheated on me, but I guess we've both changed. She wipes her eyes and continues reading, crying again. Neither was finding your second phone. Neither was watching you destroy our life through hotel security cameras. Neither was learning about your plans to leave from real estate documents. I'll contest it, she threatens weakly. Patricia Chen is my lawyer. Would you like to guess how many of her cases end in contested settlements? She must have heard of Patricia. You really planned this all out, Claire says softly. Well, you were the one who taught me. Meetings, backup plans, you name it. You showed me how important it is to plan ahead. She looks at the pictures, the emails, the calls, the texts, 5 months of proof of her cheating on me. But what about us? Her voice falters. There is no us, just the documents, and your signature. Jason, come on, we can figure this out. I walked over to the window and looked out at the street. Todd's house was still blacked out, as if nobody was home. Janine filed this morning. Emily is serving Kyle tomorrow. They're going down, Claire. You did this to me. I just told you the truth. You did the rest. With trembling hands, she takes the pen. I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't care about the intention. Just sign it. The sound of my pen scratching away at the paper was the only thing I heard for a few minutes. What do we do now? She asks me, putting the pen down. Now, you pack a suitcase and head out. You'll hear from the movers about your other stuff. I pick up the papers she's just signed. Your new home should be available shortly, as long as the deposit goes through. She slowly got to her feet. That's it? After 5 years together, this is how it ends? No, Claire. 5 years was over the second you picked them over us. This is a formality. I watched as she climbed the stairs, listened to her as she packed her things. It was all captured on video. One last piece of evidence of her betrayal. She came back down with a suitcase, looking at me with a calm expression. I did love you, you know. I know. That's why I have to do this for you. The door shuts behind her, and I watch her leave through the window. A moment later, her car is pulling away from the driveway. That was easy. I get a text from Janine, a thumbs-up emoji, telling me she was successful in confronting Todd, just as planned. I pour myself a drink and sit down at my console. There are still a few more things to do to tie up loose ends, but for now, I just watch the security footage of Claire leaving. I watch her drive away, and I sip my drink, feeling satisfied that I had accomplished what I set out to do. Cheers, I say to myself, raising my glass in a toast to a job well done. I sit there for a long time, finishing my drink, then pour myself another. But eventually, I get tired of the silence and the empty house. The ice in my drink has melted when I finally step outside, needing to get some fresh air. The sun has almost set, and only a sliver of purple light remains. The roses in the garden are blooming, the air filled with their scent. I had almost forgotten planting them with Claire last year. My phone vibrates again, and I see another message from Janine. I don't read it, just put it on silent. The aftermath of what I've done will have to wait for a little while longer. I walk over to the bench where Claire and I used to sit and talk about what we wanted to do the upcoming weekend. I sit down and run my fingers along the armrest. Nice night. She startled me for a second as I heard her voice, and then saw her head appear over the tall fence. It is, I reply. She must have seen Claire leaving, but I try not to let on. There was some action over at Todd's place today, too. Janine didn't look too happy. I removed a dead leaf from one of the rose bushes. Marriage is difficult. That they are. She stops, and I sense her looking at me in the fading light. You doing all right? Change is a part of life, Mrs. Peterson. Sometimes it comes from us, sometimes it comes to us. A car door slamming can be heard in the distance, and we both look over. I don't see any lights on in Todd's house, but there is more activity in the driveway now. Well, Mrs. Peterson finally says, if you ever need anything, thank you, I will. She's gone, and now the garden is mine, all mine. My phone rang again. It was Patricia Chen. I didn't answer. A breeze blew through the garden, carrying the scent of jasmine. Claire had chosen it. Stop, I tell the memory, shoving it back into its box. The first star appeared, then another and another. I watched as the sky grew darker, and the stars came out, one by one. I saw a car drive by and noticed it was Kyle. He didn't look at me, didn't even glance up at the house. By tomorrow, I thought, everyone will know. I sat down on the bench and leaned back, resting my head and staring up at the sky. My drink was still on the table next to me, the ice melting and watering it down. Mr. Reeves? I turned to see a woman standing at my garden gate. Emily, you can enter. She paused before going inside, as if she wasn't sure if... It's okay. Do you want to have a seat? The girl nodded, sitting down on the edge of the bench. I just wanted to say thank you for helping me see the truth. The truth is plain as day. You just have to know where to look. Kyle's already left, she says, a bit shakily. He took off an hour ago. Couldn't even stand to look me in the eye when I showed him. I looked at her. Are you okay? No. She chuckles a little. But I will be. That's the important thing, right? It takes time. The pain never really leaves. But it does get better. She turned to look at me. How can you be so calm about this? Time and commitment. Think about how this garden was put together. Thoughtfully, grown, cultivated. Revenge is the same. I don't think I could have had the patience to plan, to wait, to see it all. You could, when the only other option is to live a lie. A police car could be heard in the distance, but it was moving away from us. What do we do now? Emily asks, just as Claire did before. I got up from my seat and picked up my drink. Now we rebuild. Separately, differently, but honestly. Thank you, Jason, she said, getting up from her chair. For everything. She left, and I stayed out in the garden, watching as the stars became more numerous overhead. The roses Claire had planted were still there, swaying in the light night breeze. The thorns were still there too, but hidden in the darkness. My phone buzzed one last time, signaling a new email. It was Claire, logging into our shared account from a hotel Wi-Fi. I made a mental note to send the email along to Patricia, another bit of evidence for tomorrow. But for now, I just wanted to sit out there in the darkness and enjoy the night air. I was in the neutral zone. I wasn't on anyone's side, and I wasn't being accused of anything. I wasn't being lied to. It felt good to be in that place, in that garden, where there were no accusations or lies, just dirt and flowers and trees and stars. I went back to my drink and finished it off. It was just whiskey, but I was too tired to get up and pour myself another one. Besides, I had a feeling I was going to need all my strength for tomorrow. But for now, I just wanted to sit out there in the garden and think about what had happened, to process it all, and to try to figure out what I was going to do next. I looked up at the stars, trying to make sense of it all. Life is complicated, I thought to myself. It's messy, it's full of mistakes and regrets, but it's also beautiful, and it's worth fighting for. I looked down at the empty glass in my hand, and sometimes you just have to start over. I set the glass down on the ground beside me and closed my eyes, trying to picture what my new life would look like. It was hard to imagine, but I knew it was going to be better. It had to be. I opened my eyes and looked around at the garden. It was a mess, but it was my mess, and I was going to do my best to clean it up, tomorrow. For now, I was just going to sit here and enjoy the peace and quiet. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. The garden was a peaceful place, and I knew I would find solace there. And maybe, just maybe, I would find a way to heal. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes once more, letting the tranquility of the garden envelop me. I would deal with the rest of it in the morning. But for now, I just wanted to enjoy this moment. I just wanted to be in the garden and to feel the cool breeze on my face. I just wanted to be. I stayed out there for a long time, until the stars began to fade and the sky grew lighter. I felt exhausted, but strangely at peace. I got up from the chair and stretched, feeling the stiffness in my muscles from sitting for so long. The cool air felt refreshing on my skin. I looked around at the garden, taking in its beauty one last time before heading back inside. Through the window, I could see the glow of my laptop screen. I left my glass of wine on the bench and went inside. The house was dark and quiet. It would be even more so once I left. I noticed a faint glow coming from my laptop on the coffee table. It was still on. I went over and closed the lid. Claire had left a bank transfer for me, which had gone through just a few minutes earlier. I looked around at the boxes, which were all packed up and ready to go. They were labeled with careful writing, saying things like, for storage, or to give away, or for new house, or photos. Then my phone rang. The account's frozen, she says, without saying hello. Claire's transfer bounced. Great. And her attorney? Davidson and Mills. They dropped her when they saw I was working for you. Conflict of interest. I smile. That's too bad. I began the process of separating our assets that morning. It took longer than expected to divvy up our things into piles of mine, hers, and garbage. And there was a lot of garbage. It turned out we had held onto a lot of junk over the years. The doorbell rang. Movers, a big guy says when I answer the door. First batch. I pointed at the piles. Everything marked with storage goes first. They began taking the boxes, and I watched them from my command center, monitoring the transport of Claire's belongings. Another text from Janine. Todd's attorney resigned, she says, almost boastfully. I hear there aren't too many good divorce lawyers around here. How unfortunate, I say back to her. How unfortunate. The movers stop at a picture. It's of our wedding day. Where's this heading? One of them asks. Storage, I say finally, gently. By noon, the house is emptier. My computer showing several different tabs, real estate listings, storage unit rental agreements, bank accounts being divided. Mrs. Peterson brings by a casserole. Thought you might need some food, she says, stepping inside. It's a lot to take in, seeing it all go. Thank you. Want to stay and eat with me? We eat at the kitchen island, surrounded by the organized mess of half-packed boxes. Janine seems improved, she says as she chews, a weight lifted. The truth can do that. And you? Are you okay? I thought about that for a second, picking up a fork from our wedding registry. I'm methodical, she offers. Focused, she gave my hand a tap. But if you need anything, I know, thanks. When she leaves, I go back to taking pictures of everything. Documenting, cataloging. There needs to be evidence of who owns what. More boxes and more dividing of items follows. I find hidden things in Claire's books and take pictures of them, receipts and hotel notepads with times and dates written on them. The phone rings. It's Claire. The bank blocked my transfer, she says, seething. Your assets are frozen until the divorce is finalized. You know that. Give me my money, Jason. Like you gave me trust, loyalty, dignity. I didn't reply. The movers are there, she says finally. Your shit will be in a storage unit by this evening. The code will be sent to your lawyer, once you get one. She hung up. I made a note of the call. When I came home that night, half of our belongings were gone. The movers had taken everything that belonged to her. Figured you could use this, she says, entering the room, which is more empty than full. Care for a drink? We drink from the bottle, sitting on the floor. Kyle's lawyer left today, she says. Must be contagious. She laughed, sounding relieved. You planned that, didn't you? Patricia Chen is methodical. We drink together in silence, and the room becomes dark. It gets easier, she says at last. Right? I look at all of the empty spaces, just waiting to be filled with something real. It gets better, I say. That's the important thing. I pick up my laptop and turn it on. Just for a moment, I look at a couple of houses online. None of them are the one I want, but I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for something different. Different. That's all I want. The house feels empty. I'm not done packing, not by a long shot. But this is the first day of many to come, and soon I'll be out of here. Hopefully, I'll be able to find a new house just as quickly as I'm getting rid of this one. My phone buzzes again. It's a message from Patricia. She reminds me about the court date. I reply with a thumbs up and put it on silent. I don't do any more packing or planning for the rest of the day. I just sit there in the half-empty house and think about how I ended up here and about where I should go next. I fall asleep in my chair, and when I wake up, it's already morning. I spend the entire day moving out of the house and into my new apartment. It's late when I'm done, and I lie down on my bed exhausted. The sun shines through the large windows in my new apartment. I haven't bought any curtains yet. I'm on the 15th floor and have a good view of the city where I used to live with Claire. A new place, a new start, a new life. The furniture is simple and impersonal, just the way I wanted it. No unnecessary decorations or colors, neutral tones. It helps me keep my focus on what is important. My phone vibrates on the kitchen table. It is Sarah. "Heard about you and Claire," she says when I pick up. "You all right?" "I think so. We broke up. Mutual decision." The lie came easily now. Let them think we separated amicably instead of through legal proceedings. "But you must miss it," she insists. "That lovely home of yours." "Nah, I think the apartment is a better fit for me." I walk out onto the balcony. Even at this height, the streets below are busy. "Okay, well, if you need anything..." "Thanks, seriously." I hung up and got back to unpacking my office. This new place was a lot bigger than my old one, with better light and a view that made me feel like I was coding from the bridge of a starship. I had 3 monitors now, as opposed to 2, and was trying to get them set up. The doorbell rang, Emily with coffee and bagels. "Nice place," she says, entering. "Very you. That's the idea." We sit down on the couch, the city behind us. "Kyle called again," she says, adding cream to her coffee. "His new attorney resigned." "Patricia's diligent," she laughed bitterly. "There's a shortage of divorce attorneys in the city." "Yeah, funny how that works." The music was different too, playing a new Tycho album instead of Claire's usual indie folk selections. "Janine's seeing someone," Emily says after a moment, "from her yoga class." "That's nice." "You? Do you want to start dating again?" I thought about it for a few seconds as a jet streaked across the sky, leaving a contrail behind it. "I'm working on some other stuff right now." "What kind of stuff?" "Some creative stuff. There's a poetry group next week, maybe some trips." She smiled and said she understood. And she was right. I spent the morning organizing my books. I had a lot of poetry now mixed in with the technical manuals. Claire had always laughed at me for trying to write poetry. I thought about that and realized it didn't bother me anymore. Then my phone rang. It was Patricia. She says it's a final settlement conference. Claire's self-representing. Of course she is. "The court will look favorably upon your offer to split your assets evenly." I smile, looking around at the room I had spent so long preparing for him. "Thank you." In the afternoon, another friend of mine came over, a guy I knew from my running group who had recently been through a divorce himself. "Wow, nice view," he says, walking out onto the balcony. "Yeah, it keeps me grounded." "Cool. So, a bunch of us are going to hit up a bar later. You want to join?" I think about saying no, but there's no point to it now. "What time?" 8 o'clock at the Edison. It's a new spot in the city, not like our old places. I'm in. I spent the rest of the day working on my computer. It was easy to get into a flow state in this quiet apartment, and I made good progress on my project, which was, in essence, a tool that could track trends in financial data. Before I knew it, the sun was setting, and it was time to go out for drinks. I changed into some nicer clothes and took a quick look at myself in the bathroom mirror. I looked different, more focused, more honest with myself. The Edison turned out to be a perfect spot for a drink. It was modern, but not too pretentious, and it had a good crowd without being overcrowded. Mark was sitting at a table in the corner. "Jason, this is Karen, and this is Tom. They're also here to reset." She had a firm grip and a knowing smile. "Mark told me you work in tech? Software? You?" "Corporate lawyer, just made partner." We look at each other. I can see that he recognizes me as a man who doesn't give up, just like himself. They don't hold it against me, though. They know the game and that it requires a lot of patience. "To new beginnings," Tom says, lifting his glass. I lift mine too. "And better endings," I say, and everyone laughs knowingly. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it. I assumed it was Claire, calling to ask why her lawyer's plan didn't work. X? Karen asks with a note of pity in her voice. Past. She nods again. I talk a bit about my own experiences after that. It's rare for me to open up to strangers, but these folks have gone through the same things as me, so I don't mind. We'll have you over for dinner next week, Karen says as we pack up. Just us, a nice bottle of cab, and no one getting upset. Sounds good. When I got home, I sat down at my computer and checked my emails. Patricia had sent me a message, along with a few other people. I spent some time responding to them and checked the feedback from all the systems I had set up to track the damage fallout from my attack on the world. It was all going well. The world would be okay again. Maybe even a little bit better, I thought. Sometimes you had to destroy things in order to make them better. The last thing I did was check my phone. I had received a text message. It was from Karen. Had a great time today. Thanks for coming over. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Bring some wine if you can. I saved her contact information in my phone and sighed, feeling a little bit better than I had in a long time. Then I went to sleep. The following weeks turned into months. Before I knew it, 3 months had gone by. I spent a lot of time at the coffee shop, and soon it became a habit. I would go there almost every day, writing my code and my poems and continuing to work on my life. I go to the daily grind every morning to get my coffee. It's been 3 months since I moved into the apartment, and I've really grown to like this place. Hey Jason, the usual. It's Sarah, the barista that works the morning shifts. She's already got my cup ready. Thanks. Slow morning? As much as it can be. I sat down at the same table I always choose whenever I go to a cafe. Old habits die hard, as they say. I quickly noticed a woman sitting at the table next to mine. She was arranging sugar packets in the same way I did when I found out about Claire's infidelity. You new here? I ask. She looked up at me, a bit surprised. Is it that obvious? The sugar packets. You're trying to impose order. It's a dead giveaway. Divorce or death? She asks, catching me off guard with her candor. Divorce. You? Same. 6 months out. Rebecca. Jason. Mind if I join you? She gestures to the chair next to me, and I see that her hands are steady, the same way mine are now. How did you know? She asks, setting her sugar packet fortress aside. Everybody has their tricks. Mine was spreadsheets and security cameras. She chuckled. Mine was hiring a private investigator. I found out he was embezzling money. People were coming and going. A man was on his phone talking to someone about a meeting later in the afternoon. 2 students were discussing something to do with philosophy. Does it get easier? She asks. Rebecca. They all ask the same question. It gets different. The pain serves a purpose. A purpose? Like compost. It feeds the growth of something new. She smiled. Poetic for this time of day. I've been doing a poetry workshop. It's a great way to vent anger. Just then, a woman came into the restaurant. I recognized her as Karen, one of our dinner party. She saw me and waved, making her way over. Jason? And you are? Rebecca, a fellow fresh start. Great, Karen says, taking a seat. We're all having dinner tonight. You 2 should join us. She doesn't immediately reply, but I can tell from the look in her eyes that she's tempted. Good food, better company, I say. No obligations, no expectations. Okay, Rebecca says. The morning sun has moved, casting warm sunlight over our table. My coffee is cold by now, but I don't care. How's the case? Karen asks, lawyer brain never quite shutting off. Final hearings next week. Claire's still her own lawyer. That's a move, Rebecca chimes in. Yeah, not by choice. It's surprising how hard it is to get good legal help in this town. I smile back at her. Word does travel fast in the legal community, I think to myself. My phone buzzes and I see it's another email from Claire's lawyer. Or should I say, her new lawyer. I ignore it. That gets easier too, Rebecca says, pointing at my phone. The not looking. Everything gets easier with practice. As the morning rush turns into office hours, Sarah goes about cleaning up. 7 o'clock, don't forget, says Karen, getting up. And bring wine and stories. When she leaves, Rebecca and I sit quietly for a while, watching the world go by outside. A couple nearby is having a fight, and I wonder if they're about to split up. Thank you, Rebecca says suddenly. For what? For seeing the sugar packets, for getting it. I understood. Recognition was enough. I had work to do, but it felt good to have made a bit of progress rebuilding my life. Same time tomorrow? Rebecca asks, picking up her stuff. I'll be here. Maybe this time I'll help out with the sugar packets. She smiles at me, as if she knows that this isn't about sugar packets at all. We're organizing something else, something much more important. I look out the window. Rebecca is gone. And as I see my reflection in the glass, I realize that I'm no longer the man I was when I found Claire's phone. I'm different now. Sarah comes over with a new cup of coffee. Free of charge, she says. You seemed like you could use it. I smile and nod, accepting the payment as a friendly gesture from a kind person. I get back to work on my laptop, but my mind keeps drifting to the conversations I had this morning. Maybe this is how I can move forward, not by getting them arrested or seeking revenge, but by finding comfort in people who have gone through similar things as me. I spend the rest of the day at the daily grind, writing poems and drinking coffee until Sarah tells me they're closing. When I get home, I have just enough time to pick up a bottle of wine and some bread from a nearby store before Karen and Rebecca arrive. It wasn't planned, but when Karen asked me if I wanted to have dinner together, and Rebecca chimed in saying she had found a new recipe she wanted to try, I couldn't say no. The day turned into night, and I slowly began to process everything that had happened. The lights of the city are slightly blurred as I step out onto my balcony. I take a deep breath, enjoying the fresh air, and try to ignore the faint smell of food lingering on me from dinner with Karen, Rebecca, and the others. With a glass of wine in my hand, I walk over to the railing and look down on the street below. I've bought some plants for the balcony, herbs mostly, so I can use them in cooking. There are even some trees, although they are still quite small. It's a nice touch, I think. It makes the balcony feel more alive. The view from up here on the 15th floor is quite something. The cars look like ants crawling on the street, and the people walking by are just tiny dots. I've always loved this view. It's so peaceful and calming. And yet, at the same time, it's a reminder of how insignificant we all are in the grand scheme of things. I see a man and a woman fighting inside a car, probably a married couple. I can't hear what they're saying, but I can see their angry faces and the way they're gesturing at each other. It's strange how you can feel like you know someone just by watching them from a distance. My phone vibrates. It's a message from Claire. I can see the first few words of the message. The house sold today. I thought you should... I delete the message without reading the rest. Nice night. I turned around, hearing Rebecca's voice behind me. I always forget I'm the only one with a telescope, I say, pointing outside. Can I use it? She comes over to the railing to stand beside me, smelling of perfume. A different kind than Claire's. Karen's really improved her cooking, she says to break the silence. Practice makes perfect, just like with anything. Even healing? It wasn't an accusation. Also therapeutic, I say, looking up at the sky as a plane passes overhead. But I think I'd say more like rebuilding. She points to my apartment through the sliding glass door. Is that what you consider this? The sparse apartment? The art on the walls? The absence of memories? I consider it an upgrade, a change of pace. Survival of the most organized? I laugh, and it's not a fake laugh this time. Something like that, I guess. A police siren howled below. Do you ever wish you did things differently? Rebecca asks out of the blue. With us? I think about it. No. Regret means I would do it differently, and I wouldn't. Even knowing how much effort it would take, especially knowing that. Some things are worth doing right. The air is starting to get a little cooler now, a sign that fall is coming. I was served today, Rebecca says softly. Countersuits, accusations. They're saying I'm crazy, that I'm vengeful. And what does your lawyer think? She grinned at me like a cat who had caught a mouse. Karen is taking care of it. I guess there's a severe lack of good lawyers to defend against her. That's funny. We both understand. I heard the others getting ready to leave. Let's go back inside, Rebecca says. Yeah, in a sec. I want to see the moon come up. She nodded, knowing that I often needed a quiet moment to myself. See you next week, she says, standing at the door. Yep. Once she has left, I remain on the balcony, listening to her footsteps as she descends the stairs. I hear the door close behind her and the faint sounds of the city below. The moon has risen higher, casting a glow over the cityscape. I notice a reflection of the moonlight on a small glass ornament on my desk inside, a memento from my time with Karen. My phone buzzes again with a final message from Patricia. All done. Everything's in place. Congrats. I don't reply. Some things are better left unsaid. The herbs in their pots sway gently in the breeze, their leaves brushing against each other. I reach out and pluck a sprig of rosemary, inhaling its fragrant scent. Looking down at the street, I see a couple walking hand in hand, a group of friends laughing as they make their way to a bar, and a solitary figure hurrying home after a long day. I take a sip of wine, savoring the rich flavors. It's a bottle I picked up from a local vineyard, one of Rebecca's recommendations. The moonlight casts a long shadow across the balcony, and I find myself reflecting on everything that has happened. I am no longer the person who discovered Claire's phone, nor the one who set out to destroy her. I've changed, evolved, and grown into someone new. The air feels fresher up here, as if the altitude has cleansed it of the pollution and noise of the city below. I take a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace and contentment that I haven't felt in a long time. Inside, I glance at my laptop and see the unfinished project waiting for me. It's a new idea, a way to use my skills for something positive, something that could help others. I smile, knowing that I have the freedom to pursue it now, without the burden of the past weighing me down. A shooting star streaks across the sky, and I can't help but make a wish. It's not for revenge or justice, but for happiness and fulfillment in the life that lies ahead. The city continues to bustle below, the lights and sounds creating a symphony of life. I watch it all from my perch, feeling connected to it in a way I never have before. I finish my wine and set the glass down on the railing. The world is full of possibilities, and I am ready to embrace them. As the moon continues its journey across the sky, I turn to go back inside. The door closes behind me, leaving the balcony and the city beyond in silence. Tomorrow is another day, and I am eager to see what it will be.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully." Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look, "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their IN. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself. This could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.